episode of Awesome Russian Shit, the Ekranoplan. In the 60s, the Soviet Union leader bragged about having such a ship that would just jump over bridges.
Khrushchev once bragged that Russia had ships that could jump over bridges.
Now, by today's standards, not that jumping a bridge is anything to shake a stick at maybe, but I don't see what would be the benefit by having a ship that could jump a bridge. Someone fill me in. Comment below if you're from the 60s and still alive from the Soviet Union. A ship that could move as fast as an aircraft but just hover feet above the water, being undetected by radar. For decades, the Soviets were trying to make this thing become a reality under shrouds of secrecy. If you even said Ekranoplan, you were thrown into jail. Rostolov Alexei was a hydrofoil engineering genius, and he came along with the idea to, instead of putting the wings under the boat, under the water, let's put them up over top. In 1950s, the fastest thing to be on water would be a hydrofoil. Now this is a boat that's got wings fixed to the bottom that a certain speed would allow lift and bring the boat up out of the water, creating less drag and produce a better speeding boat. But they said the fastest that you could go would be 110, and then that was your limit. That's as much as you could do no matter what you put on there. Obviously they didn't try rocket launchers.
In the 1950s, the fastest boats in the world were hydrofoils.
Shifting from hydrodynamics to aerodynamics allowed the craft to move at a much, much faster speed. Alexeyev built many prototypes, small models, proving his theory would work.
He knew that because of water resistance, boats and hydrofoils could only move so fast. To go faster, his boats would have to leave the water completely. To this end, Alexeyev developed a thorough understanding of an aerodynamic phenomenon known as ground effect, a sensation of riding on a cushion of air. Alexeyev had the funding to build small Ekranoplan models on his own, but to properly test his ideas, he would need a huge injection.
In a time of need, he needed more money, more resources that he couldn't afford, obviously. Who can afford to build something like this? At a time of the Soviet Union, in the middle of the Cold War, he had to build this project to appeal to the military.
It wasn't guns or butter, it was guns give you butter. It was a military-led society. Stalin produced such a society.
We've got to settle back, cross the board, build real military power.
So he approached the military, and he's like, hey, I got a plane. We'll just fly just feet above the water, below the deck, as they say in Top Gun. So he won't be picked up by radar. So this was a huge advantage if you wanted to sneak across the water to the neighboring countries and drop off troops. Also, being out of the water would leave you undetected by sonar from anybody that was in the water, submarines and stuff like that. Very, very sneaky Russians. Once the military noticed that, hey, we could have an upper hand here against the Americans because they got nothing like this. The military funding blew open and they basically gave him everything he wanted. So starting in 1961, he had built 5 prototypes in about 5 years of time, all weighing in at just a couple ton. They were all small aircrafts.
And they could fly at aircraft-like speeds, low to the surface, or sea mines. With their small draft, Ekranoplan, and they promised to be relatively cheap and simple to build, mixing aircraft and shipbuilding construction. Over a period of just 5 years, they went from small prototypes, weighing no more than a few tons, to this. A 265-ton monster they called the KM. Ship that could move as fast as an aircraft by lifting right out of the water.
Injured while testing a new Ekranoplan to be presented at the 1980 Summer Olympics, the vehicle lost lift and lowered into the water at high speeds. Alexeyev died at the age of 63 following 2 operations, just days after. The KM crashed shortly after Alexeyev's death due to pilot error. The project was cancelled but used as a foundation for the LUN. The KM, being a football field, was extremely hard to maneuver. The A90 and the LUN were significantly smaller. The KM could carry 1,000 troops, while the A90 could only carry about 200.
This astonishing machine is powered by 8 huge jet engines, travels at 300 miles per hour, only a few feet above the ocean, and could carry 1,000 Soviet Marines. Since the Cold War, the project has been crippled by financial problems. Today, the original monster sits in dry dock.
By the time the KM made its first flight, the Soviet leader was in change. And the new Soviet leader wasn't about taking risks and building big projects like the Ekranoplan. So it got scaled down, and Alexeyev got demoted to just head of the program instead of being the big chief. And all the funding for the Ekranoplan kind of dwindled away, so they focused on smaller projects like the A90 Ekranoplan. health and oil field. Subscribe. Watch every video hundreds of times over and over. In fact, leave it on replay all day.